Hey everyone, welcome to the Healthcare Digital Marketing Podcast. I'm very excited about this episode and speaking with Anthony Blanco. He's an amazing coach. You and I were connected through a mutual client, and I think I
Yeah.
just saw the values where we're very similar. We just take care of our clients, have those personal relationships, and we just want to see them do well. So we were connected together. And so you have like what 20 plus years of coaching experience. You
Yeah,
work
that's right.
a lot of dental practices. Um, I also, before we open up to the audience, would love to kind of hear about your brand, so Premier Advisory Group, and then
Uh-huh.
also, I think did you get Coach of the Year at one point with specifically?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
So we're part of an Action Coach franchise.
Okay,
There are 1,700 coaches worldwide,
okay,
in 75 countries. And so I've gotten Global Coach of the Year twice,
wow, that's awesome.
in 5 years. And then my buddy Earl, who I work with as well, who's the owner of the coaching agency, he's actually gotten Global Coach of the Year twice as well. So we are actually the only coaching firm in the world
Yeah.
with Action Coach. And of all those people that have two people who have won Global Coach of the Year twice in the same space in the same office. So yeah.
Wow. So, all right. So that's amazing. But are you both Batman or one's Batman and Robin? Like,
I'm definitely Batman, and he's definitely Robin. And he may or may not see this recording, so I don't know.
so that's awesome, man. Big congrats to both you guys. So Anthony, how did you get into coaching?
So the way that I got into coaching was it was almost 22 years ago. My wife went to apply for a job at this place that recruited financial advisors. They talked to her about this is back in the day. There was no Zoom, right? It was like phone. It was the headsets and phone calls.
Yep.
And she's like, I'm not doing that. And then when they brought me in there, they shared, well, if you get to this certain amount of, they called it a book of business of premium or annuity submitted or whatever it was for that time, they said you could not have to recruit anymore. And
Okay.
so I was in that role where like I was making 300 phone calls every single day, mainly
Wow.
because they said if you make 100 phone calls every day, you'll be able to coach in a year. And so, or no, 18 months. And I said, well, if I make 300 phone calls a day, because I hated making phone calls, I will be able to coach in 6 months. And that's what I
Right.
did. Yeah, so I got to coaching right away. Coaching financial advisors is where it started,
Okay.
helping them with their team, with culture, with branding, with sales, like all that stuff. Yep.
Wow, that's awesome. So how did you switch or like how did you get into dental? I guess is a better question.
Okay, so in dental, 5 years ago, so my wife and I have owned our own business as well. Still do own our own business, and what that led me to be able to do is have the freedom and flexibility to look at other things to do.
Okay.
And then I sent Earl a text. I've known Earl actually since I was 7. So Earl is 63, I think, this December. So I used to play with his kids. So we were friends when we were little. And one of his daughters was actually the maid of honor in our wedding. So like that's how like interconnected we had been throughout our entire lives. So I sent Earl a text. He responded, why don't you come take a look? So I actually took a look for a year because if I was going to associate myself with a place where I had to have one of those things that's kind of like, like a job, then I wanted to make sure it was a good cultural fit for them and me. And when I came on board with Earl, we both decided it would be a good fit. He said, I have a niche with dentists, and I get more and more referrals, and I can't handle them all myself. And so I
Wow.
need help handling those dentists. And so that first year, Earl took me everywhere, like in the country, working with DSOs, working with single practices, and everything in between.
Right.
And I learned dentistry through a fire hose 5 years ago. And now I work with just over, I don't know, it's like maybe like 30 practices right now.
That's awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
So now that you're coaching full time, you're running, different businesses, and getting more towards the coaching side of things. When it comes to working with clients, right? How are your clients working with their teams and then also hiring in this current environment? Because like when I talk to dental practices or owners right now, or even the front desk, like they're losing, staff members left and right, and
Yep.
it's hard to hire, with the current climate. So how are you working with them on that?
Well, the very first thing that I do is I have them do, and this is, I guess there's a couple of keys. So the first key would be they have to identify, number one, the company culture, like be clear on it.
Yeah.
Right. And so some people are like, oh no, we have a good culture. No, that's they're defining of everybody gets along. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm
Yeah.
talking about a very defined culture. This is who we are. This is how we show up. This is how we love on our patients. Right. And
Right.
everybody is into that culture. And then we look for a person for whatever that position is going to be. Do they have what we want them to have to be in love with our patients? Right. Because that's where they've got to be. And
Yeah.
we look at team members that need to be humble, they need to be hungry, and they need to be smart, right? And I don't mean smart as far as like, I mean, we want them a certain level of IQ smart, but we're talking about people smart, right?
Yeah.
So we have to be clear on our culture is key number one. Number two, we have to be absolutely clear on what we want as a team member. So you may have heard this phrase before is that we have to have develop an avatar for who we want to hire, right?
Yep. Yep.
Then we put it out into space, right? So we put it out into space by we go on to all the hiring platforms and we're looking for those people and we just start bringing them in as fast as we can. It just so happens right now in this environment is that we have to look at a lot more people in order to find the right person.
Right.
So what I recommend to my people is number one, culture, right? Number two, identify your avatar. Number three is just fall in love with the process. Because if we spend our time in frustration, then what we do is each person that starts to come through our door, our mind is saying, this isn't the right person.
Yeah.
Right. And so one of my friends, this guy that I met back in April, his name is Neo. He has this mantra where he says, thoughts become things. And so now if you're thinking all the time that this next person isn't the right person, guess what? They're not. They're not the right person.
Nope.
Right. And so we have to change our mindset with how we're hiring by falling in love with the process. So that's the three keys is culture, avatar, and fall in love with the process. That's where we're at, and just be completely separated emotionally from it and just follow the process.
Awesome. So like as a coach, like how do you help them create that? Like that mindset, the culture, the process, or I guess at what level do you hold their hands through that process to help them get the right person?
Sure. So to get the right person, the very first thing I do, depending on if they know their culture or not, we'll spend time in that. Let's say they've done that.
Okay.
Then the second thing is defining their avatar. So I will literally sometime it'll take me, and I work with people about an hour per week usually, sometimes longer. It just kind of depends on what's going on. But in those sessions, I'll get very, very clear on what that avatar looks like. So it might be able to be done in 1 hour. It might be able to be done in week to week in 2 weeks. So they can identify exactly what they're looking for, right? We have a joke with one of my clients that hired a gal named Diane. And we told Diane, because I made the current office manager that was wanting to step down so she could spend more time at home, I had her write out a list of what she wanted inside the avatar. And so we frequently joke around with Diane and say, Diane, you did not exist until we designed you on paper. Right. So that's the very specific ways that I work with people to get them what they need. And then the mindset is the fall in love with the process. Yeah. And there's a couple different things I have people read or listen to, whatever it is, about falling in love with the process. Because when we follow the process, we can test, measure, and improve the process.
Right.
But if we're always focused on the end result, it tends to learn to frustration. And what ends up happening is when we have a lot of frustration, it tends to lead to apathy. And then if we have apathy, then it's going to lead to like, I'm done. Like I just can't find anybody good, so it's no good. So mindset is a huge component of not just this, but everything in business and life.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I had a friend the other day, he's connected with a doctor who hired someone, and they're still in the role now, so I don't know how it's working out, but hired someone that has no experience. They're in real estate, and they're great. They're great at communication. They're great at they're a people's person, but no experience in what they do, and really didn't take them through a process. It was because it was hard to hire for that role. They just threw somebody in there, and I think what you're talking about is really being intentional, patient, going through a process, be engaged and in love with like who you're trying to hire to fit the need of the business. And I think that's where, COVID has thrown a wrench into all of that, right? Because people
Sure.
just like, I don't want to follow process. I don't want to do anything but hire somebody to fill this gap.
Right.
But I appreciate like just how you guys really, engage with them at that level to build that relationship to help them understand. Like we'll get there. Like there's an end result. We'll get there, but we got to do it the right way.
That's right.
Um,
Patience.
Patience is key.
Yeah. Patience
So
and persistency.
right, right. So like how do you guys as when you're coaching dental practices, right? Like how do you help them grow their business? Because yeah, I'm sure with those 30 or the other ones you work with, DSOs or independent
Yeah.
locations, like I know they're going to be different in many ways, but how do you help them grow their practices?
That's like, like you just said, that's a completely loaded question, right?
Oh yeah.
So everything, so what we always tell people is that we are not cookie cutter. So we
Right,
don't have a specific stamp that we go put on every single practice.
right.
So the first thing that we do in order to serve the practice the best is we spend 2 days with them, 2 full days,
Oh wow.
to completely align their personal goals with their business goals. Because what we say and what we believe in our heart is that business is to help us get what we most desire in life. Business is not life. And
Right.
if we don't anchor in and build clarity through those 2 days, then we will end up putting and I don't know if you've ever heard this, but it's like you put your ladder on the wrong wall and you climb up it, look over and be like, oh my gosh, I didn't want to be here.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
we have to develop that clarity for both their personal life and their business life to help them get where they want to go. After that, we develop a 90-day plan after we've dealt the 5 year, 3 year, 1 year, and then 90-day implementable plans. And those 90-day implementable plans will based upon their highest 10 levels of chaos inside their practice.
Okay.
So you may end up saying, I may end up working the practice, and let's say they have a cancellation and no-show rate. Like it's like terrible. Okay, well then what we're going to do is we're going to attack that. Maybe it's treatment acceptance. Then we're going to attack that and we're going to go through it. And there's phases to coaching each one of those things. It's not just like, again, it's not here's the system. Because if you're working with a DSO or you're working with a practice that only has 6 people in it, the approach for both of those is going to be very different with what we want to accomplish. Yeah. So when you say, what do you do to help? I don't know. It depends what the highest needs of the practice are, and we
Right.
do that through discovery of the alignment process.
No, that's awesome. It sounds very customized, very it's a strategic approach based on their business and personal needs.
That's
Um,
right.
at what point do you see it's hard when you go into this this engagement with them, right? And they have they show you their personal needs and their business needs, but at some point they don't align and they're afraid to move in a certain direction.
Mm-hmm.
Like how do you get them to really see the big picture of if this is what you want, we have, because sometimes with clients, as you know, you'll paint the picture based on what the information they're providing,
Mm-hmm.
but then when you get to like the taking action,
Mm-hmm.
they're not quite ready to move move with those action steps. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you keep revisiting like, hey, here are your goals, here's what we discussed, we need to be doing this.
So we tie their actions to a clear picture of what they want in life.
Okay.
And I know that may sound kind of cheesy, but when we do that, it works because if people are dissatisfied, and maybe they're just looking to grow and they're not really dissatisfied, but maybe they're just looking to grow, but they have to have a clear vision for what they want,
Yeah.
right? And if they have a clear vision for what they want, they're dissatisfied or disgusted with their current position, kind of depending on their level of that, then they have to know the first steps to get there. And then the first steps is that here's what we're going to do. And then they have to make an agreement with me and Earl that they're going to be held accountable at the highest level.
Right.
Because in our coaching agreement that we have people sign even says that, like, we can only do so much, but it's up to you to take the steps, right?
Yeah.
And at any point in time that somebody's not taking the steps, we're going to call them out on it.
Yes.
So we are not like coaches that are working with people to please them. Like if we're looking for a coach to say, hey, listen, this is what I want. We want to, kumbaya, and it's okay. We'll do better next week.
Yeah.
You're talking to you're talking to the wrong guy here. And if Earl was on here, you're talking to the wrong 2 guys.
Right.
Right. Right.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
So when it comes to just the overall like growing a business, what have you seen? And again, I know this could be a loaded question, and there are all different types of practices that you work with, different sizes. But like, is there one factor that you can really, point to say this is a big factor or major factor in growing a business?
Yeah. What are your numbers?
Yeah.
What I mean, I can ask that question and know where they're at,
Yeah.
right? So if somebody doesn't have a budget or a spending plan in their life or any goals, what ends up happening is they probably don't have a whole lot of money in their accounts, and they
Yeah.
probably aren't achieving the goals they want. In the same way, if I asked a practice and the first time and I say, so tell me what your production and collections is so far this year. Okay, how much is it an increase over last year? Sometimes they can answer that. And then I say, okay, so tell me about your treatment acceptance. What does that look like? Oh, we have a good treatment acceptance rate. It's high. Well, what is it? I think it's around 50%.
Right.
Okay, but they don't know, right? So if I say, well, how many patients did you bring in last year and how many did you close? They don't know the number. So therefore they can't give me, they're just going based upon feelings, not facts.
Right.
Right. So one of the leading indicators for me is that people don't know their numbers. Right. What is your appointment efficiency ratio on your schedule? Do you have 80% of your calendar open, 60%, 50%? What are your cancellation and no-show rates? What is your production per hour, right? Per provider? What are your systems and processes? Yeah. There's all these questions that I ask as a part of digging in through that alignment to say, okay, I can see. It's like I told Earl this the other day. I said, it's like when my wife and I used to buy houses to flip them. We only did it a couple times, but I could literally show up on a curb, look at the house, walk through the house, and I could see everything that needed to be done inside that house.
Yeah.
But you can't do everything at once.
Right.
You can do everything one at a time, right? So that's what we do is essentially when I'm asking all those questions and I find out the highest need, then I focus on those things.
Gotcha. So really, when you get the answers and you're looking at like the solution, you'll take that one step by digging into that information to figure out how to solve that problem.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So back to the other question of when you like really when someone, it's hard to get them to see the big picture based on the information they're provided. Do you guys create a map for them, like where they can see like, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3, based on where you're trying to go and the information you provided. Here's a map, and here's how we're going to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's part of that 5-year plan, 3-year plan, 1-year plan, 90-day plan. That's the map. Awesome. Right. The thing is that when we build 5-year plans, they are living plans, right? Nobody had a plan for COVID.
Right.
Right. So they're living plans, and they're always that way, because what we find out and the way that we work is we work on people's potential, right? Which is more than what they think they're capable of, because they have not yet done the things or seen the things that they're capable of. And what ends up happening is once they achieve that level of belief, all of a sudden they start asking different questions. Right. And when they ask different questions, what ends up happening is they start making different decisions.
Yep.
And then that will go ahead and that will impact the actions they take.
Right. So
which
no, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say that ultimately impacts the overall results.
Gotcha. So let's say, you on average, right? Like, how long does it take for when you have that first consultation where they just don't even know their numbers, right? And and then now they're profitable, they have better systems, they know their numbers on patient conversions. Like how long does it take to get to that point?
Depends on the level of chaos inside the practice.
Yeah.
Right. So because we've had people say, when should we be able to hit these numbers? Like, I don't know, because again, I can give you we can work through the steps together, but I can't do the stepping for you.
Right.
So, and if the practice is in complete disarray, then it takes longer, because if we have a people problem and we try to implement systems, that's like planting good seed in bad soil. The plant dies. It doesn't even take off. It doesn't even get up above the soil, right?
Right. Really good point. So switching gears, when you think about like, especially with how we work with clients that we're mutually connected with, like how do you help them with coach through marketing, and then really looking at whatever else is working?
Sure. So I like to see most of them, and you've probably seen this. most of the people that I find aren't tracking their return on investment on their marketing dollars.
Yep.
Right? They don't know how many leads they got. They don't know how many they converted on all their marketing sources. So usually we're saying you should be doing 4 to 6 marketing strategies simultaneously to be able to measure ROI to know where you should be spending your money, right? But you don't know that unless you're tracking. So most people aren't tracking. Then, I mean, this has come up before, believe it or not. I'm sure you have never heard this, where they said the marketing's not working.
Yep.
Right. So the marketing's not working, and as a coach, like, I want the best for the client. So like, even if I'm friends with the people that I've created relationships with, like you or anybody else, like, I'm ultimately serving my client, which is measuring numbers. Yeah. And so I had a client say it's not working, you know, that we're not getting enough leads, and it's not a good ROI. And I said, you sure? He said, well, yeah, that's what I think. And so I looked on their system, I called the company, I called the practice manager, and I built a spreadsheet, and I looked at all the numbers, and they were getting a 10% ROI.
Wow.
Well, not a 10%. They were getting a 10 times ROI. Sorry, they were getting a 10 times ROI. So they spent $70,000 on marketing and brought in $700,000 of revenue.
That's crazy.
And he told me it wasn't working.
Yeah. Because to your point, it's not really looking at the data; it's just a feeling, right?
Right. That's why, that's why we always say, you know, what are the facts? Let's throw out the feelings, right? Let's talk about the facts.
Yeah. No, I think that's so important, and that's why, like, as we being a marketing agency, we have to put so many automations in place to really nurture leads, right? Because sometimes it's, you know, you're sending the right leads, it's just the conversions are down, right? For whatever reason. And so it may not be a marketing problem, or they may not be doing what you're talking about, is really investing in several different marketing channels, not just one. Because for example, SEO may take a little longer than if you're running Facebook ads or Google ads, right? But where we see the biggest value is just really from the conversion side, is having more automations in place, but then really tracking those conversions through booked appointments as it relates to connecting APIs together and all that good stuff. So you have to be doing those things. Otherwise, like, if I like, gosh, from a marketing standpoint, I would lose a ton of clients every single day if all it was just based on feeling. Yeah. Because they were like, I don't feel it today, and I'm going to cancel.
Oh yeah, no, I get it. No, I haven't gotten any leads today. No, I totally get it, and that's why we have to temper. Let's measure every month. Let's measure.
Yep.
Let's see what happens. And then even if numbers were down, what have numbers been for the last 7 or 8 months? Oh, the numbers have been up. Okay, so what's different about this month? So it's not just all of a sudden making a impromptu decision, but it's asking the right questions and saying, okay, well, let's see what happens next month. Do we need to adjust? Does the messaging need to be different? You know, that's all the right things to do before we make a drastic change in marketing strategies. Right.
And then last question for you, Anthony, like, from a technology standpoint, are there any new technologies that you guys are using or you use consistently with your current clients?
Yeah, I use dashboards. So Dental Intel is a dashboard that most of my clients use. Yeah. And then I'm a user on all of those Dental Intel accounts. And so I do a lot of coaching with the practice managers and sometimes the owners on it, but it tends to be more the practice managers where I'm coaching on that. I have coached the ReCare team. I've coached the associate doctors, all how to use Dental Intel to pull the numbers so they can see their overall effective and efficiency with what they're doing. And then I love just how the screen shows me right at the beginning, like, how well we're doing. And then I love to go back and look at year-over-year trends. For example, a lady out, one of my teams out in St. Louis or near St. Louis, I said, hey, did you realize, like, year-over-year, like same point to same point, is that we're currently averaging 120,000 more in revenue this year than the last 3 years.
Wow.
And that's what Dental Intel. And she says like, oh, I didn't even realize that, because she's more about team building, but the practice manager is more about the numbers, right?
Yeah.
But then, and then the other dashboard. And so Dental Intel has since purchased Modento, which is like a Revenue Well, Lighthouse. They purchased Local Med, which is automatic scheduling.
Yeah.
which has worked out ridiculously well to put clients on the schedule. You can do blast text and emails. They also incorporated a payment system in there to send out blast text and emails. So those things with what Dental Intel's been able to do has been unbelievable in the last, especially 2 years, with some of the acquisitions and partnerships that they've made. It's made a tremendous difference in the practices they use them. Probably sounds like a commercial, but if I could teach a dentist, even if it was for free, even if I sat down for 30 minutes and somebody's got dental intel, I'd be more than, I'm throwing that out to anyone who's going to listen to this. If somebody's got dental intel, I'd be more than happy to sit down with them 30 minutes, show them a couple tips and tricks, and I know it would add value to your practice. But then Jarvis is a not new dashboard, but new to me. But I think that I'm going to like that as I get more into it. There's practice by numbers that's out there that I've seen that works well. So there's these dashboards, and what they do is they allow us to really get a heartbeat of the practice at a glimpse without having to run 422 reports through EagleSoft, Dentrix, or whatever other practice management software they're using.
No, it's all awesome. And I'm a big advocate of dental intel, and especially local med, because when we see, practices that have a ton of traffic, and, they're even targeting, just the newer generation, that they're moving 100 miles an hour, they can schedule with local med, at night, weekends, when, no one's actually in the office, but they can schedule and show up, based on their appointment and what they see in terms of the schedule online. And that is just an amazing feature. So I'm like you, like I'm promoting them. We're not getting paid for it.
That's right. I'm not getting paid for it. It makes my job easier because I can coach from my side. They can tell me, oh, we're doing really well in recare. I'm like, no, actually we're down like this month. Oh, we are? So it provides that transparency for me to really dig in with whoever I need to dig in, whether it's, again, the owner, the practice manager, the front desk, the assistants, it doesn't matter. I can coach from everywhere using a platform.
So one follow-up question to that. So have you ever worked with a practice where they didn't have dental intel, and you had to convince them to get dental intel and why it's important? Just would love to kind of understand if that's happened before, because I can only imagine if they're hesitant for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And then, you have to show them why, they need to be doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a practice that said, well, I don't want to get it. It's another $500 a month. And I think it's like $395 or something like that. But they're like, it's another $500 a month. I don't want to do it. And so that's $6,000 a year, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I said, well, let's say that's true. And now let's say that, let me look at it with you. So they can do like a demo. And I pull it up and I can look at their screen to see how much their production per visit is.
Yeah.
And let's say their production per visit is $500. Usually it's around, depending on the type of practice, but like $450 to $500. And I said, so using dental intel, if I can show you 3 ways to put more patients on the schedule, and each patient that gets on the schedule is worth $500, it only takes one patient, 12 patients, not even new patients.
Yeah.
12 patients per year to be put on the schedule to pay for dental intel to break even. And I'm telling you that you have, and so I look at this number up here at the top, I can see it in my mind, where I can see this number at the top, and I can see that they have 1,500 unscheduled active patients. And then over here in this little corner over here, it tells me that the annual unscheduled opportunity is $1.4 million.
Oh my gosh.
And so I say, I can teach you 3 things that's going to help you get some of these people, these 1,500 people on the schedule, and you're going to go get some of your $1.4 million that's just sitting over here in the drawer.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. So it doesn't take me long to convince somebody to use a dashboard. Yeah.
Right. I'm sure they were pretty convinced after that.
Yeah.
Well, Anthony, hey, man, I appreciate just the insights and the wealth of knowledge. This was an amazing episode. And if any dental entrepreneurs or dentist practice owners out there, or even coaches, have any questions for you or would love to reach out to you, how can they connect with you?
Sure. So my cell phone number is what I use for a business line. So that's 785-554-8626. So again, it's 785-554-8626. My email, and you can text or email, or text or call. And then my email is Anthony@the PA, so THEPA .group, GRUP. So a lot of times people are like, your email's bouncing back, and they always put .com.
Yeah.
So we use .group. So it's Anthony at thepa.group. So that's the way that they would reach out. Or hit me up on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever.
Yeah, and we'll include all this information in the description as well of this podcast. And thank you guys for listening to the Healthcare Digital Marketing Podcast. Again, I'm Lamar. This is Anthony. We'll see you next time.
All right.
Thanks, Anthony.